And Vanessa, some commentary on the BRICS nations.
Yes, I'm going to probably ruffle a few feathers with this short report, and I'm sure it warrants further discussion in extra. But I wanted to focus on a statement made by Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Sayyid al-Khamenei, in the last few days, where he calls basically for a global economic and political quarantine of the enemy, meaning Israel. He encourages all Islamic and non-Islamic nations, and I'm assuming he's referring to BRICS nations, of which Iran is a member, because obviously appealing to Western countries isn't going to have much effect. But he appeals for them to cut all trade ties, suspending port access, freezing bank transactions, denying energy supply, and severing political relations to bring pressure to bear to end the genocide, both in Gaza and, of course, in the occupied territories. Now, I will refer people to this article that I published, Up at the Wall Will Fall, which was written by Professor Patrick Bond, I think, in November last year. The blessing, you'll remember the curse and blessing map that Netanyahu showed at the UNGA, showing countries within BRICS being included in the blessing, and of course Iran being included in the curse. The blessing for genocide, nearly all BRICS regimes nurture Israel economically. Now, of course, when we talk about international law, and all BRICS countries do make statements adhering to international law and condemning the West for violating or basically shredding humanitarian law, Geneva Conventions, particularly on genocide, and international law generally. Now, this is a new account on X that is putting out some good data on this kind of subject, and I do recommend following them. Yesterday, they sent me this. So BRICS is reshaping a multipolar world, but how are they responding to Israel's genocide of Palestinians? Our latest analysis tracks 2025 exports, January to July, to Israel versus 2024 with critical insights. Now, first of all, they summarize China and India, top military suppliers to Israel. Russia, Egypt, and the UAE, leading energy exporters to Israel. Brazil and South Africa are the ones that are kind of throttling back on energy exports, dropping in the ranking in 2025. And what they say is BRICS trade patterns reveal stark divides in geopolitical stances. Now, I want to have a look at this infograph that they, no, I won't. I'll first of all mention recent reports in Israeli media on a new deal, in fact, between Israel and India, who inked a bilateral investment deal in New Delhi to foster trade ties. Just one example of the collaboration between BRICS nations and Israel. Not only Israel, I would also mention countries like the UAE and Saudi Arabia that historically were established by the British to actually form a partnership with the Zionist entity and protect it from the resistance pan-Arab alliances that might threaten it in the future. That's an important point to make. So if we can just keep this following diagram on screen, people can zoom in on it, but just while I run through it, because I think it's important to do this, you can take your time and look more deeply into the information that's included on there and in the article that will be in the show notes. But if you look left to right, you see Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. In overall trade partnership, Russia is number 7, India is number 8, and China is number 1. And China is exponentially increasing its trade partnership with Israel. And that includes Chinese state companies being involved in the settlement pogroms in the occupied territories and investment in Haifa port to facilitate the offloading of weapons to the Israeli military. Russia is number 2 in energy supply. India, number 5. India and China are number 5 and number 3, respectively, in war goods. Now, that's quite an extraordinary statistic when one considers who are the primary partners, of course, from an armaments perspective for Israel. China is publicly saying that it's a genocide. Russia and India have not publicly said that in any of their statements. So I think the point is, if we look at the ICJ ruling from July 2024, all states are under an obligation not to recognize as legal the situation arising from the unlawful presence of the State of Israel in the occupied territories of Palestine, and to not render aid or assistance in maintaining the situation created by the criminal presence of Israel in the occupied territories. This is just one ruling. Of course, under the Geneva Convention, every state globally has a responsibility to both prevent genocide and punish the perpetrators of genocide. And while nobody is advocating that BRICS countries are responsible for what is happening, what we are saying is that they have the power to economically bring serious pressure to bear upon Israel and to stop the genocide. They have that ability, and therefore I think they should be held to account for not fulfilling that responsibility.
I struggle to argue with that, Vanessa. We'll have a go at arguing about it in extra though, and it is an incredible situation. These countries, without doubt, doing some positive things in the world, but they have to be held account for whenever they're not. And I think this is one area where they, particularly because they're taking such a stand with respect to international law and the West. So we'll talk more about that in extra.